Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 15th Annual Buffalo International Film Festival. I'm John Fink, the Artistic Director, and I'm joined by Anna Schmay, our Executive Director, and the co-directors of On Our Own Island. Welcome, ladies. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
This movie is so beautiful. I'm curious, at what point in the process did you start? What was the sort of the evolution of the process?
Sky and I both I've been in the media 40 years. Sky, like 10 plus.
A decade, yeah.
Right. And when my husband and her father, really what we thought very fit, healthy guy at 57, got diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer and thought he'd beat it. We were like, why don't we just film this journey and see how this is going to go? And halfway into it, when we found out he wasn't going to make it, we decided as a family, Stephen as well, to film it, because we think that, he was a very romantic guy. We had a really intense love affair for 33 years of marriage. And so we decided to film it. We filmed it from the beginning and through and beyond the end. As you know, you saw it.
Yeah. Was there any resistance or any, throughout the process? It seems like you do have a family that's been very open about these things. Was there any, maybe don't do this, or any moments where you decided to stop?
Not at all, which is like kind of crazy. But giveaway, my father dies on camera towards the end of the film, peacefully, and it's shot gracefully. And but he wanted that to happen very much.
Not that he wanted to die. He wanted us to film it.
Right. Sorry. He wanted the process to be documented such that our story or his story in a sense could help other people in a sense.
Because in the corollary with that, I mean, actually there wasn't any resistance from our family, but
Right.
When we found out Stephen was going to die, death has changed. It's become very medicalized, and a lot of people. Skylar was born at home 32 years ago.
32 years ago.
We're 37 years apart in age.
Yeah.
And Stephen wanted to die at home. And when we went to try to find out, how could we do that as a family? We want the cats in bed with us. We all want to be there. We want to make sure it's a peaceful transition. How can we do it? We couldn't really find much. Mm-hmm. And so I think that also motivated us to be able to show something and to try to be keep our integrity intact, in terms of filmmakers, to not add anything to it, to just, right. You said it in the beginning before we started recording, and I was really elegant the way you said it. It's kind of, people have said it's an honest film, and inspiring, because in authenticity and something that's such a part of life, there's nothing to hide, really.
Mm-hmm. And I think that definitely comes across. There's definitely an honesty there. Right? It seems like you were very close. This film make you closer as a family.
It did bring us closer, because for the first time in a really long time, I was back home and I'm an only child, and so the three of us got to just be together in this cocoon, on our own island, right? It's been very interesting working together.
It's been a very rich process.
It has. That's a great word for it.
The baby boomers, my generation, were all looking at, the next part of our life, which is kind of, the last chapter. Right. And then our millennial kids that'll be with us, God willing, during that time. But I think that, the most important thing about the film is that, and that we sort of gained from going through it, was the most surprising thing to us, which is we sort of had this thing we came away with, that love is there, and it is the thing that carries you throughout it. I know you felt that, John, with yours, and I'm sure you felt it, Anna, with your people that you've lost. I mean, it's like somehow, the thing that you're so scared about and that you have no idea because it's been so under wraps, everything that is like through it, every molecule is loving, and you're guided. So we think that the film is, and we've been told it's inspiring. So, the enduring power of love lasts long after the person is gone from their body.
Can you talk a little bit about other collaborators in the process?
The music is interesting, don't you think?
Yeah.
We were watching a movie, a foreign movie, and the music was so emotional. It was this amazing music, and
Piano.
we waited till the credits, and we saw that it was some French guy. And today being what it is,
I DM'd him on Instagram. I found him.
And he's in Provence, and
he's my age, and he is this incredible composer. His name is Dominique Charpentier, and he's blowing up on Spotify right now, making amazing music. But when we got to him 2 years ago, when we wanted the soundtrack composed, he was so inspired by the film because he thought that it was very much a universal story, not an American story or whatever. And
very opinionated about how we should use music.
But the soundtrack is a really big part of that, of the film. It has a life of its own in a sense.
Yeah, it's really beautiful, the score. I am a little bit curious about how you were able to make such a beautiful and engaging story out of something that's so emotional for you.
That is such a good question. Thank you so much for that, Hannah. Well, our family, we live, left the city, and we live in a rural area with a farm, as you know, with animals. And one Sunday morning, I came downstairs, opened the front door, and there was in my newspaper a picture, like a crayon letter that said,
Come on. Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
Dear Ellie, my cow wants to be friends with your cow.
Because she has these like Scottish Highland cattle
with big horn. And I was in it, and it was really weird. Call me, right? And I did. And it turned, I don't know if y'all know who it is. If you know Parker Posey, do you know who she is? So she lives out down the road and has the same kind of cow. And so she wanted to come over and meet ours, who was like geriatric, and hers was kind of younger. Anyway, she came over and watched the one iteration of the film. And, she's kind of an indie queen of indie films. And she watched it and she was like, I feel like something's missing. And we're like, are you kidding? We've been editing this. We are so done. And she's like, I don't know, tell me, something's missing. There's like a layer missing. And we're like, well, I don't know. And we were like, Stephen was very romantic. I have these like crates of these love letters. She was like, I actually have goosebumps. She was like, you didn't include the love letters in the film? You should go out into the barn, wear like a white jumpsuit and like paste them all up all over them.
which we didn't do.
We didn't do. But what was also happening with all those iterations of the film, every time we'd finish, we would have a different title for the film. And when we started going through the letters
and filming it, obviously, because that's a whole other layer of the film that, Ellie opening this bin of love letters is, runs through it.
It was driven home, and it was revealed, I guess, we were guided, that he always wrote in his letters, we're on our own island, because of our love protects us from the forces of society that tries to, pull people apart. We're on our own island. So the little note from Parker Posey down the street about the cow revealed the letters revealed the title, and
a whole other layer of the film, and it totally changed the film. So there's another, signs from the universe certainly help complete a film.
So great question. Thank you.
Yeah, that's wonderful. What was hard to let go of? I know you had to have had scenes that were really, really hard to cut from this. Is there anything that you really wish you could have worked into the story and you couldn't?
The pot scene.
Yeah, the pot scene.
There was one segment where my dad, like you see towards the end of the film, when he's really frail, he's smoking weed, because it's just a very, great thing as someone is dealing with cancer in a natural, way
to medicate yourself.
Right. Naturally.
Yes.
But in the beginning of the film, or this big scene that we ended up cutting out, was us experimenting with weed butter to make cookies.
Charlie wanted weed cookies.
Yeah. And so there was like this whole scene where we
made the cookies, ground the pot,
and made butter.
It.
It was like very bizarre. And it was really funny, and it ended up not making it into the film, but that was a fun segment that was hard.
Maybe one day it'll be one of those extra.
Yeah.
things.
And we brought in an editor who did, Restrepo and worked with a bunch of amazing
Ken
directors.
Burns.
To help us, because he really believed in the film and because we really needed,
Oh, that's a good story though, too.
what?
He'd say,
But so he wanted to cut out the pot scene.
and he would always say,
Anyway.
come on, don't you have any other footage? And we go, no, we don't have any more. He'd go, I know you do. Everybody always does.
And we're
Come
like,
on,
no.
let me see everything. Right. We're like, okay, here it is. Here's all these hours.
And then he came back and he was like, voila. And we couldn't believe it.
Like some of those scenes where Stephen was really sick and we were in bed with him that we had just sort of forgotten about. And he was like, just let them play. You don't have to cut away. You just be brave. Just let them play.
And let the scenes be long like that. And, like I made a lot of shorts. This is my first feature. And, the pace of shorts is very different from the pace of features and cutting around that. Right. And so he really taught us, and you did this, you both really taught me the importance of just letting something, like allowing space for a scene to just play out.
And one other thing, very rich question gets a rich answer. My husband was an athlete since childhood, and he was like in impeccable shape. Well, he had cancer, but we thought he was very fit. He ran triathlons and Ironman races. And so when he was dying, the hospice kept coming, and they go, it's going to be in an hour. He's going to die. And we would go, okay. And then like 20 hours later, he hadn't died. And because his heart was so strong from exercising, it took him a long time. And
we filmed that whole thing.
So we filmed it. So there was a whole bit, but how many of his last breaths should we show? Because most people, you don't see anyone die on camera for real. I mean, for some reason in narrative films, you see the most violent, awful things, but in documentaries, usually they cut away. And we don't want to cut away because we think that part of the taboo about death and the fear of death, that like when you actually see it, I was on the phone today with a hospice person. We're going to do a big community outreach thing. And she was saying, in a way, almost like their last breath is anticlimactic, because you expect it, because you never see it, to be such a big deal. So it was like a whole thing with us was, how many breaths can we show? And loving him like we did, and watching that over and over again for years, for the first couple of years we would cry. And then, I guess we got out of crying and we would fight.
Right.
And then after we got out of that, we were just like, okay, how many is enough to let people really be there with us?
Yeah.
And we think we got somewhat close to the right balance.
Yeah, and it certainly is very impactful and very special. And usually, I know in the case of when my grandmother was dying, they said that it'll happen when everyone leaves the room. And
did it? Did it?
It did, actually, yes.
It's a very mystic. There's a lot
Yeah.
of mystical. We think our film has a spiritual dimension to it. And John, to that point, what people say is that your loved ones wait. We were up with him for 2 days, and at one point we fell asleep
At like 5:30 in the morning.
after like being up for like 2 days. And while we were 5 minutes asleep, during those 5 minutes, he took his last breath, and the camera
was rolling
in the corner of the room and got it. But he did it. And I think they do it out of love.
Yeah.
That everybody says they do.
Any final thoughts?
I think we just want to say that, that we don't feel this is a death film. We actually feel it's a love film. And that, people have compared it, my generation say, oh gosh, it's like a real life version of Love Story. And Sky's generation say it's a real life version of The Notebook. That really the theme is love. And it's just one of the lead characters dies. And, so we hope that the message the film leaves is the enduring power of love, that love continues. And it's the most important thing there is.
The film is On Our Own Island. It is beautiful. It is heartbreaking, and it absolutely should not be missed.